All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us as we give you an update on Aero Cygnet. My name is Wayne Dean. I'm the volunteer president and founder of Aero Cygnet. So we have a lot of people that will be watching this online. So this will be posted on my YouTube channel. So we do have our own separate YouTube channel, and it's shown right here on the screen, youtube.com/Aero Cygnet. Our whole goal is to educate, aviate, and elevate young people. We are certainly already a certified 501c3 nonprofit organization. Um, Let me show you how we started. We had a conversation earlier about this. I've been flying since I was a kid. My dad had our first airplane, a 1936 Aranca Chief, back in 1961. And then in the 70s, he started a program called Aero Cygnet, which was actually a stamp reward program. So some of you are old enough to remember S&H or True Value stamps, where people would go to a grocery store and get S&H stamps and put them in a booklet. And it's one of those funny things where you didn't cash them in all at once. You tried to collect a whole bunch of books. His program is if you got a whole booklet, you got a free airplane ride in our Cessna. If you got 10 books, you got you worked a deal with a commuter airlines, you got a trip to Chicago. If you got like 1,000 books, you got a trip to Hawaii. And it was a whole rewards program, but it was a for-profit organization. Um, I've kind of morphous the name Aero Cygnet. Cygnet is a young swan into a nonprofit organization where basically our mission is to inspire and educate young people through a sense of purpose through aviation. The idea is, there's a lot of kids that maybe aren't great in sports in high school, but that's not the same playing field. They didn't have the same athletic ability, weren't the same size or whatever. But in aviation, it's an equal field. And so what we want to do is work to provide more opportunities for somebody to become either a pilot, a mechanic, or an air traffic controller. But also, even if they don't go that far, use aviation as an incentive for young people to achieve a little bit more than they would strive for some greatness. And we're working with Boys and Girls Clubs, Realities for Children, other nonprofits who will feed kids into our program. So the idea is be an approved 501c3. I've gone through all the status and already got that approved with the IRS, so we are legitimate. We're incorporated as a nonprofit in the state of Colorado. We have our nonprofit and tax exemption status. But we really saw a need to give people the sense of purpose in this chaotic world of, what are kids really trying to get involved in if they can't get involved in sports or some activity, or the cost is so expensive. As far as aviation, when I talk to a lot of people, oh, I'd love to get my pilot's license. Or I've even talked to kids at the high school down the street. Oh, I'd love to get my license, but mom, dad said they can't afford it. Or I don't qualify medically. See, what I really want to focus in on is that neglected market of kids with juvenile diabetes, HDAD, some other type of program where they wouldn't qualify for their privates because they can't qualify medically. But as most people in this room right now understand, with your sport pilot license, you can go through, and it's about half the hours, 20 hours minimum for that. You don't have to have your third class medical. The cost isn't as expensive as a full private, but we could still get kids involved who might, if they end up, want to petition the FAA and get an exemption, might be able to get their private pilot's license, but they were discouraged at the beginning, or mom and dad didn't let them. We want to raise enough money that we can provide scholarships to kids to go to commercial aviation programs, to go get their privates, or go with their, to get their instrument rating. But we want to get them involved first. So we're just that stepping stone, that conduit to get people started. So the programs that we offer is, one, we have our own flight simulator in here. So people can come into our flight simulator. Schools can send us kids, nonprofit organizations, they can come in and use our flight simulator to find out if they even enjoy flying. Second, we want to be able to provide exploratory flights, just like the Young Eagles do, but we want to be able to get kids up in the air. I remember I took a couple kids up with my dad, really thought they'd love flying, and then found out they were scared. They were afraid of heights. And until you get some people up there, they think flying could be a great thing, but then they realize maybe it isn't for them. But maybe they could be a mechanic, or maybe they could think about other careers. There's not just the career as a pilot, but let's get them involved and have a program for them. And I'm a member of the EA, both the chapters in Greeley and the one in Loveland. And one of the things I find is, yeah, they do the exploratory flights, but one of the things they don't do is enough of they build the models or they have a drone program. What about actually building the plane? So we will actually be building the plane every year. So we're going to be able to have them learn on our flight simulator. But August 1st through the 5th, I've already made arrangements with the county fair that we can come out at the Toyota building there next to the Blue Arena. They've given us an area that's 30 by 60 to actually build a Zenith 750 Cruiser. So just like they did it, they've done this before at the EA and the 7-day wonders. But we're doing the quick build kit. The quick build kit only takes 200 hours of total man hours. So over the 5 days, we can get enough volunteers. We can actually build the plane because the fuselage is actually already constructed at their plant in Mexico, Missouri. So I've talked to Sebastian, who's the owner of Zenith, and a lot of people say, so why the Zenith? Well, a couple of reasons. One, the actual cost of the kit for the Zenith is $42,000, and I've already put down the $5,000 down payment already. The engine, I've got Aero Momentum, have worked a deal that they're going to give us the Suzuki-based engine, 140 horsepower turbo for $20,000. So for $35,000 more dollars, we can actually get the built plane. We might not get the engine in time or put the engine in it, but we can build the plane at the county fair. We wanted a tricycle gear. I know that from trying to do our 170 or our Ronca Chief tail draggers is not always the easiest to learn in. So I think tricycle gear. I wanted it because of being outside here to be aluminum. I looked at the Kit Fox, I looked at the Rands, I looked at the RV, and it just trying to find a high wing tricycle gear, all aluminum plane. Price wise, it was just that Zenith was the one that fit the best. So I went out there in January and I did the rudder workshop and built the rudder already. But every year we're going to build another one. So next year it might be the Rams or the year after. The other thing is we wanted one that had folding wings. As you guys know, that the waiting period for finding a hangar is substantial. So we want to be able to put it into a trailer so that we can not only have it stored and not have to take up too much room in a hangar, but that we can take the plane around to high schools, different events, fly-ins, and make it a mobile classroom. Actually get a trailer, put our flight simulator in there. I've applied to the FAA for a $119,000 grant to cover the cost. They won't pay for an airplane, but they will give you some of the other stuff like the flight simulator, the trailer, the portable classroom, all those kind of things. Of course, that's on hold right now because of everything that's going on with the FAA. But we decided that the Kit Fox was my closest because they had some really good folding wings. But again, it's cloth. And so we went with the price wise, we went with the Zenith this year. But as we use the plane for a year, the intent is to sell it and then take the profits, buy another one, and every year build a different plane. And if Mosaic does go through, and we instead of taking with the Sport Pilot a 2-passenger, the Zenith has got what's called their Super Duty, which is it's got a jump seat in the back, so it handles 3. And if Mosaic goes through, you'll be able, as a Sport Pilot, still take 2 passengers. Even the Cessna 172 will still qualify under if up to the 3,000 pounds. I think the Cherokee 140 might also. You think, Jason, or? I think the 140 will need to get bigger than that. Yeah, and because I think the maximum speed on the Mosaic ideas is I think 250 knots, 300 pounds, or 3,000 total pounds. So anyway, looking at what the useful load was, it just came down to this year we'll do the Zenith. So here's the problem. Forgive me for the error, but our goal was 50,000 to trying to get it going this year. As I said, we've raised 8,000 so far. We put the down payment down. We've got to come up with 35,000 minimum. And I think by about middle of July, I've got to go there and pick up the plane and trailer it back, the kit, because they're going to be leaving for EAA the middle of July. We're going to start this August 1st. So hopefully with what happens this weekend at the Greeley Whale fly-in, that we can get some donors, and I've applied for some other grants with like the Rotary Club, that kind of thing. But so far, really, what's coming, we got to come up with 35,000. Then we'll, I think, once we have a plane, we can start taking it around. Even doesn't have an engine, we'll start to get some recognition, some donors, some sponsors, who will then we can finish and get the engine in. I've requested the bomb. I don't know if you're familiar with the bomb from Level Aviation. It is for experimental planes. It works. It actually looks like a bomb. It's about a foot and a half long. It mounts on the strut. It's got your artificial horizon. It's got your attack angle. It's got your speedometer, and it sends it by Bluetooth to your iPad that you have in the plane. And this plane is designed that it's got basically a 19-inch monitor on it on a hinge panel, and all your instrumentation is on that. So, and even if I get my ADS-B in and out, I can get the instrumentation for less than $5,000. So we might have to go to Great Lakes to get some of the things, or maybe BAS or somebody where we can get some of the instrument for the engine, the oil pressure, that kind of stuff. But I think we can get this plane completely done with engine for less than $70,000. They're selling for about 110 to 150,000 once built. So next year we can go and keep stepping up and maybe even get one or two. But the idea is that I think once we have a plan, we can start taking it around to different events, different fairs. We'll start getting that recognition and getting two things. One, obviously, we can get donations by people scanning our QR code. Two, I think we'll start to get donors, people that'll be interested, or volunteers helping us build the plane. And three, starting getting the youth participants from outside other programs who want to get into flying, but maybe their high school doesn't have a drone or a flight program or something like that. So we want to be able to take it and make it portable. That's really the difference I see than like the Young Eagles, is that we've got a program that is portable, and it isn't only just from some other member in EAA that's bringing their kids in. We can start opening aviation to a bunch of other kids. So help us by raising some money or sending out our donation letter that I've attached to people that you know or sponsors, wherever we can get that from. Second, volunteers are needed for the 5-day build. I've already got an online program where you can go online, register. I'll have the online, I'll have the sign up sheet for people at the fly in this weekend. So people can sign up. We've divided it into 4 shifts each day. We'll bring the plane in on Thursday, the kit. We'll start assembling it on Friday. Saturday, most of the fuselage will be done. The wings will be done. We can actually start wrapping it. We're not going to paint it since we don't want the fumes and everything at the fair. But 100,000 people come through the fair. So as they start to see it, see all the advertising, I think it'll gain some momentum. But we'll vehicle wrap it basically. So we'll need to have a complete schedule of people working it. I want obviously kids to be involved. So for every kid that is volunteer, and I've had people have asked me about age, what age group for kids as far as helping build. I'm really not going to put a restriction on it. I'm just going to ask that there be an adult or a volunteer mentor with each kid. Obviously, we're building an airplane with rivets. It's a hand rivets and easy to construct. It's matched hole drilling, so that if you're putting the spar and you're putting the already bent aluminum over the wing, the holes automatically line up. You put your Klinkos in every other one, and then you come back and rivet it. So as long as we have an adult mentor who understands how this thing's put together, and again, like anything else, there's so many YouTube videos you can, if I can have an adult mentor look at it and see how to put it together, I think it'll be easy to help kids, show them how to do it. I want to actually get the kids involved. I don't want adults building it. I don't want it to be like, the Boy Scout soapbox derby things where the parents do the work and the kids are watching the parents do it. I want the kids to be able to work and put it together. So I need volunteers um, to really help us during those 5 days. Again, we might not have the engine in time, but I think we can have the plane put together. Again, we were in an area there at the Peterson Center at the ranch at the Loveland at the Larimer County Fair, right next to the Blue Arena, and we're right as you come into the door, the big overhead door. So once we build the wings and we fold them, the whole thing can go back outside. Gary's going to bring it, the weather's permitting, Gary Motley, one of our Zenith owners. We've also got permission for him to fly his plane in, or any other plane. If there's something, if he doesn't fly it and you want to fly it in, they're going to let us land it at the fairgrounds and then taxi it on the road and have it on a finished plane on display outside while we're building the other plane inside. So that is pretty awesome. I think we'll get a lot of people that'll come out and see us and be excited about getting, it's going to be one of those things. God, I never knew you could do this. I didn't know that you could have this with an experimental airplane and that kind of thing. So, summary of activities. Again, we've secured all the needed documents for a nonprofit status. The American Business Club has donated space here for a flight simulator and even to provide ground school. I've worked with, is it Klein? Yeah, so, and I know you're working with them too at Summit Aviation. By the way, Jason's here. Summit's been very supportive in helping us get going on this thing. So we've got the space for it. We've raised the money already. We've already worked a deal to get a really good price on a brand new engine. There's several different engines you can put in this plane, the Corvair conversion one, but again, that's a used one. There's Viking, which does a Honda, but again, they take the Honda Civic, convert it into an aviation plane. The Aero Momentum is one that's actually a brand new block of a Suzuki outboard, basically. Motor is what it was, 140 horse. It's the same one that's also used in the Chevy Track automobile. So they've had, it's a complete firewall forward kit. So when you get the plane, the fuselage might be done. The forward, the cowling and everything is provided by the engine manufacturer. So we'll have all that put together. I've made a donation request to Level Avionics for the bomb, for the instrumentation. We have the commitment for the space to build at the Larimer County Fair. I've actually also approached Dennis over at Norco Regional Airport, and he's willing to allow us to store the plane there on trailer as long as it's part-time. I'd like to split it between here and Greeley is what I'd really like to do so that we can do a lot of training. I like Greeley Airport as being a non-controlled, so you're not sometimes sitting on the tarmac waiting to take off because there's so many planes backed up in a controlled airspace. I think that Greeley would be a really good space for us to do a lot of training. I think we could get on weekends a lot more exploratory flights in there because of quicker turnaround time. So that's my intent. But again, having it on a trailer where we could take it to different places really makes it flexible. I've applied to the FAA for the grant. I've actually gone down and talked to the FAA. They're really excited about this whole program. They will have an inspector, if we get the plane financed and we can build it, they'll have an inspector come up during the build, which they prefer as opposed to waiting afterwards, and then you don't have exposure to see whether the cables were installed correctly or whatever. Otherwise, we'll have to pay for a DAR and get somebody to certify the plane. For those of you that are just listening to us, the way it works is once you build a certified kit, an experimental plane, you still have to go through phase one. And phase one is once the FAA says, yes, that plane is airworthy, you have to have 35 hours of flight time in that plane without taking a passenger before you can start taking kids up for like exploratory flights. It is an experimental airplane, which don't freak out those of you who don't understand the difference between certified and experimental. The only really difference is the experimental. It's saying that you can't rent the plane out. We can have an instructor use the plane for instructions, and he can charge for the instruction, but you can't charge for the plane. But you can take the factor into the cost, what it costs to house that plane at an airport, gas, oil, maintenance, that kind of stuff, and you could charge for that. I'm not trying to compete against somebody who's already providing, instruction in their plane. I would just want to be able to get into that niche where maybe they're not servicing. Is all that we're trying to do. So we'll also need to construct a 24 by 8.5 foot trailer. Interestingly enough, the way that this plane was actually built, the tail, the horizontal tail, is 8.5 feet. Okay, 8.2 actually. So you only got an inch and a half on each side of a real trailer, but it can be like some of, if you've seen these snowmobile trailers that are like a canvas covered and it bends out a little bit. So when I was down at Sun and Fun down in Florida, one guy did a really great job of how he got his into to that plane by having the back part just where the tail is, just like curtains instead of full size. So we can make it, and then the plane is actually 9'2" tall. So we got to have a 9 foot trailer with a little notch with it towards, or because again, it's a tricycle gear, we can tip and tilt the back tail down and I think get it into the trailer. So all those things are what we're working on. So again, I encourage those of you online watching us now to come out to the fly-in this weekend, this Saturday, for the pancake breakfast. Starts at 7 for the pancake breakfast, goes till 2 o'clock. The Warbird display will be there. Anything else you want to mention, Jason, that we should be, or Andrew? Yeah. And I took a picture of Gary's plane here. I have up on here. It's a purple. He's going to fly that, and it's the exact same thing as ours. Zenith makes a STOL package plane that's sometimes referred to as the Sky Jeep, and it really wins a lot of STOL competitions. It can land and take off in 50, 60 feet. This plane doesn't have the leading edge STOL on the wing, yet it still has a roll of only about 350 feet. So it's still it stalls at about 38 miles an hour. It's a great trainer for what we're going to do. It's very stable. It's got a center yoke on it, so that it's got a Y yoke, so it's easy for instructing, teaching people. It'll have dual throttles, obviously, on there. But for a plane of what we're trying to accomplish, and those of you that are watching that's not familiar with the Zenith, come on out so that you see Gary's plane, see what this one really looks like finished. But again, what we are trying to do is give people the opportunity to see us. Once we get some more exposure, I think we'll get a lot of volunteers to help us build it, 2 kids that want to get involved in the program, and 3 hopefully sponsors and donors to cover not only cost of building the plane, but building up an endowment so that we can offer scholarship money for kids that want to get into flying but are held back because the financial commitment that parents might not be willing to make. The idea is when we get done, we got a lot of kids that have a whole new sense of purpose through aviation. So I'll open it up to questions. We got some people online that are watching us, but does anybody have any questions or anything I didn't cover to bring you up to date? Joe, any comments? Appreciate that. Questions, comments, thoughts? And I'll repeat it so they don't hear it if you hear it.
I just want to reiterate the focus that you have on those that don't think that this is something that they're capable of affording or doing, thinking there's some rite of passage or privilege of having to be rich to learn to do this. This is particularly with this kind of help that you put together, Wayne, this is 100% achievable for a lot of kids that are out there. And the only way for that to happen is for all of us to band together and force together and do what we can to contribute to this, or find people that can help contribute to this along the way.
I appreciate that. What Jason will say, for those of you who doesn't pick it up on the boom mic that I have here, is to reiterate what we're trying to accomplish, and that we're trying to get kids involved who one wouldn't normally be able to because financially. I mean, when I talk to people and they say, "Oh, I flew," or "My dad had 4 different," oh my God, you must be rich.
Yeah.
Well, quite frankly, back then, general aviation was our first airplane with 1936 Aero Chief. We paid $1,800 for it, sold it for $10,000, bought a Cessna 170, sold it for $30,000, took that, bought a 172, sold it for $70,000. So at that time, general aviation was affordable. Now, what's a new Cessna? $250,000? Yeah, yeah. And again, it's all the avionics you put into it. An experimental aircraft is just as safe. I mean, there are over 7,200 of these airplanes already. So this plane's got a good track record.
And that's the point of having the airworthiness inspection.
Right. Yeah, and it's a newer plane. What would you rather fly? A 1936 Aero Chief that's got 10,000 total hours in the airframe, and yeah, maybe the engine was rebuilt 1,000 hours ago, but you're still flying an old plane.
Yeah, a couple months ago, I took
Yeah. Sure. And that was the concern we had as far as, okay, we're already at 5,000 feet. So that's why I wanted to go. This plane can handle anything from basically an 80 horse to 160. But in this altitude, I figured we better get 100 more. So we're going 140 horse and turbo. So that should have good performance. The plane has a top speed of about 118, cruising speed of about 95 to 100. Um, so it's not designed as a cross country plane. It's not designed to, we're not going to fly it to the EA in a day, kind of thing like that. But get more kids up in the plane, and that's the whole idea. So we'll be also looking for pilots that, if I get busy and we don't have enough people to take kids up in exploratory flights, but then hopefully be able to send them on to Jason or other schools around the state to finish and get their license. So, and again, the reason one of the things you asked me how I got involved or why I even started it, I used to be the executive director of Juvenile Diabetes Foundation. And, when you deal with a lot of kids who have diabetes, it's the third leading cause of death by disease, number one cause of hardening of the arteries, number one cause of amputeeism. There's 20 million people who have diabetes, but it doesn't stop you. You know, you can still function if you control it, but it would eliminate so many kids right away who were told by their guidance counselor, oh, you've got a medical condition, you shouldn't consider being a pilot. And so they don't even become an air traffic controller or a mechanic because they didn't get involved in aviation. Let's get them involved in aviation from our level, and then they can decide whether they want to go any further or even just as a mechanic or some other aviation field. So
is there an aviation
well, the young the EAA chapters each have the Young Eagles program. But again, a lot of those are like their weekend thing is to build model airplanes and or to do drones and to take kids up an exploratory flight. Some of them across the country, some high schools, there's one in Texas that did a RANS. Every year they build a RANS. They did the RANS 12, and then they sell it as a fundraiser for the school. So there are programs like that, but there's not one around here that's actually doing the construction. I've not seen one yet, and maybe I'm missing them, but I haven't found one who's actually building it like what we're trying to accomplish. So we're trying to open it up, do a little bit different, hit a lot of areas. Flight time, ground school, the simulator, instruction, but actually the building I think is what's going to make us separate from everybody else. Okay. That brings you up to date. Again, my ask is to help us with fundraising, help us with donations, help us reach this goal so that we don't, here's what's going to happen. If we don't raise enough money that I can send a check to Zenith so they finish the kit. Again, by the way, those of you who don't understand how it works for home built, for it to get your home built, the idea is that we can work on the plane and do a lot of the general maintenance, which with a certified you can't. So that's the other reason I went with an experimental, so that we can do some of the maintenance on the program. But 51% of the aircraft actually has to be built by me. I'm considered the manufacturer. 49% is done by Zenith. So when we get the plane, 49% is done. We have to finish 51% for it to be considered an amateur built plane. So they need time to finish it. So I got to tell them, yes, we've got the money, start finishing the plane so we can come pick it up in the middle of July. If we don't raise enough money by the middle of June, I think what I'll end up doing is we'll just keep the fundraising going. I'll tell them keep my deposit. We'll just have to call the county fairground and say, hey, we're not going to be able to build it at the fair in August. We might have to push it back to some other activity or some other place and build it. I just want to be able to build it at the fair where we've got 100,000 people coming through. It might be we end up building it somewhere else and we get it done, but I might have to push back. And I don't want to do that because there's excitement about having people come through, watching us build it, being able to see the actual construction of it from start to finish. So I hope we can do it. I'm not ending the program. I just might not be able to get it built August 1st through the 5th. So that's the program. As again, I've said, there's the online site that I've sent out to everybody. If you're watching me, you don't know where it is, email me. Again, Aero Cygnet. Again, just email me at Wayne at aerocygnet.org, and then aerocygnet.org is the website, and I'll send you a whole list of how to sign up, how to help us out. Okay, but hopefully you'll show up this Saturday, have some good pancakes, and see some great airplanes, and support local businesses in Greeley. And Jason, you guys, and thank you very much for coming, and appreciate you guys. All right, I'm going to end this now, unless anybody wants to open up your mics. So let me see. Ken's on there, Tonya. Let me see in the chat if anybody's got anything. Nope. Guess I did it. Either I did a great job or a poor job when nobody has any comments. All right. See you hopefully on Saturday. If not, we'll see you at the county fair August 1st through the 5th. Thank you, everyone.